How's it going, IE Sports Radio fans and fans of the IE Elite Wrestling Show? No fanfare today. No, what's up? No, this is your boy. None of that today. It doesn't seem appropriate, to be honest. It's been a rough couple days as a professional wrestling fan. Rightfully so. This past Wednesday, we lost a wrestling legend in Terry Funk, WWE Hall of Famer, hardcore wrestling legend, a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion, a former ECW World Champion. He put ECW on the map in the late 90s for certain. He was a wrestling icon. At the age of 77, we lost Terry Funk. And then something unexpected happened. As of yesterday, it was first announced by Triple H that at the age of 36, we have lost Windham Rotunda, better known to us WWE fans, wrestling fans around the world as Bray Wyatt. At the tender age of 36 years old. And for me, it's so shocking and it's so tragic. And it kind of gives me a sense of clarity in a way that mortality is real. No matter who you are or what age you are. I know that sounds a little odd, but there have been moments in my life, and I'm going to get real personal with the IE Sports Radio fans and fans of my show, that there have been times in my life where mortality became real for me. At 18, I lost my mother. I lost a really good friend of mine in a tragic car accident. I lost my mother to an illness. And then I lost my favorite wrestler of all time, unexpectedly, Eddie Guerrero, that same year. And just in the last few years, I lost a brother-in-law. I lost my grandfather. And it's in these moments when life comes at you and you just really reassess your time here. And you thank God for every minute that you're here. And then something like this just unexpectedly just comes and just pretty much smacks you in the face. And I've been thinking about what exactly I was going to talk about on this tribute episode to Bray. And I've been at a loss for words really thinking about it. The only thing I keep saying is just, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And I'm just a fan. I had no particular relationship with this person other than the fact that he would be on my television screen and he would entertain me. I was a fan from day one. And then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking as a father, and as a husband, I'm thinking about his widow, JoJo Offerman, and Bray's all the time. We should really be coming together no matter what. Wrestling fans are some of the most devoted, heartfelt, passionate fans you'll ever find. And you could see when something like this happens, how it affects the wrestling community as a whole. You know, thoughts of prayers and condolences and beautiful memories have been shared since the untimely news came to light yesterday afternoon. It's just really, it's really just, I mean, you can see I'm still at a loss for words. I really don't know what to say. But I'm going to do my best to pay tribute to the legacy, the life, and the career of Bray Wyatt here today. Bray Wyatt was born as Windham Rotunda on May 23rd, 1987. And Bray was born to a family of wrestlers. His father was Mike Rotunda. For those who don't know, back in the 80s, in the heyday of the golden era of the WWF, he was known as Erwin R. Shyster, IRS. And him, along with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, were the tag team known as Money Inc., and they are former WWF Tag Team Champions. And not only that, Bray's uncle, both his uncles, were the Windham brothers, Kendall Windham, and more famously, Barry Windham, member of the Four Horsemen. His grandfather, Blackjack Mulligan, one half of the legendary tag team, the Blackjacks. And Bray had a brother who was also a professional wrestler, former NXT champion, former WWE Raw Tag Team Champion, Bo Dallas, for those who don't know. So wrestling was his life. Wrestling, he was always around it. Wrestling was his life. And he wrestled under many different names. He became a professional wrestler in 2009. Along with his brother Bo. They became the FCW Florida Tag Team Champions twice in FCW Florida Championship Wrestling, which preceded NXT. And then the first time we got to see Bray on WWE television was when NXT was like a game show, and he was on the second season of NXT as Husky Harris was the character he was given, and he eventually would make it to the main roster as a member of the Nexus, still under the name of Husky Harris, until the Nexus was disbanded in the feud with CM Punk and Randy Orton, and Bray went back down to developmental. And this is where the creative genius of Bray Wyatt was able to flourish. Of Windham. This is when the creative mind, the genius, the intelligence of Windham was able to flourish and be nurtured, and grow under Dusty Rhodes and Triple H and other trainers down in NXT at the Performance Center. And this is where the birth of Bray Wyatt came to fruition. And Bray Wyatt was portrayed as a villainous leader of the Wyatt family, a bayou-dwelling cult. He returned to the main roster with the Wyatt family in tow, Eric Rowan, and another wrestler who has gone way too soon, Luke Harper, a.k.a. Brody Lee. And they were immensely popular. They were immensely popular in NXT, and they were immensely popular the minute they hit the main roster. I still remember the night they debuted. The lights went out in the arena. You see a lantern lit up. You see Eric Rowan with his goat mask on. Luke Harper to his left. And Bray sitting there in the middle, holding that lantern. He holds it up. And he says, "We're here." Blows it out. And then you just hear that bass line, that famous bass line from their first theme. Boom, 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 boom. Man. Catching flies. Boom, boom, boom. In his mouth. Excuse me, I just had to sing that a minute. And, man, it was just like a change in wrestling. It was like a breath of fresh air. When Bray Wyatt and Harper and Rowan showed up on our television screens, and he was immediately thrown into a feud with Kane, brother of the Undertaker, kayfabe brother of the Undertaker, and you could really tell that Bray Wyatt was going to be something special from that first minute you saw him on TV. That this guy had what they call it. He was going to be a future main eventer, a future huge star in professional wrestling because he had all the tools. He could talk, he had the charisma, he had a unique look, and he was awesome in the ring. And how could he not, coming from a large wrestling family like he did? He's a third-generation superstar. There have been so many superstars that have come and gone, some successful, some not so successful. I would definitely put Bray Wyatt in a class of the successful, of course. You got third-generation superstars Randy Orton, and the most famous third-generation superstar of them all, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. And I hold Bray Wyatt in that same class. I remember when this was the time when the Shield was running on all cylinders. They were full speed ahead. They were becoming huge stars at this time. Roman Reigns, Jon Moxley, and Seth Rollins. And then it led to the inevitable right before WrestleMania. This match itself could have been a match at WrestleMania that year, but instead it happened the month prior to WrestleMania at Elimination Chamber. This match itself could have been at WrestleMania. That's how big the buzz was around this match, where we had the Wyatt family against the Shield, 3-on-3, a trios match. We had Harper, Rowan, and Wyatt against Reigns, Moxley, and Rollins. And these guys, all six of them, showed without a shadow of a doubt that they were the future of the business, particularly Roman and Bray. And in that match, Bray pinned Roman clean to get the win for the Wyatt family. And this is what led to one of Bray Wyatt's biggest feuds and probably one of his greatest opponents ever, in John Cena. And John will tell you and has expressed his feelings about his feuds with Bray Wyatt over the years, because he's had a few over the time. This first match, this first feud that they had, it was so. I will say it was very well booked. It was, the buzz around it was fantastic. Leading into WrestleMania 30, this was definitely one of the highlights of that pay-per-view event. And this was during the midst of the Yes Movement, with Bryan Danielson, trying to achieve his goal of becoming the WWE World Heavyweight Champion in the main event of WrestleMania that year. In all the midst of that craziness, in the midst of Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker and the streak ending, you had this just awesome, beautiful match between Bray Wyatt and John Cena. John Cena got the win, but I feel like Bray got the rub from John in that match. And it showed that Bray could hang with huge main event stars like a John Cena. And Bray had memorable matches, at different WrestleManias. The following year, he ended up going one-on-one with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 31. And it was kind of like the old, not so much, it was, it was like the Phenom, the legendary Phenom of The Undertaker. The old guard taking on the new face of fear in Bray Wyatt. And that's what he was called, the new face of fear. And they had a great match too, Taker and Bray. And Bray, unfortunately, Bray didn't win that match. I feel Bray should have been given more wins than the losses he suffered. But that's the name of the game. I'm not the one booking. I can't be the armchair quarterback here and say that I wish Bray would have won this and Bray would have won that. Excuse me. But Bray had his successes. One of the best moments, if you haven't seen it, you should look it up on YouTube, is definitely one of the coolest moments in WWE history. And it's such a simple little thing, but it was just the way it was done was what made it so fucking awesome. It was a tag team match, the most random of tag team matches ever on a Monday Night Raw. Roman Reigns was the WWE champion at the time, and he had a tag team partner in Bray Wyatt. The most random of tag teams put together, Roman and Bray. And I mentioned them earlier in their match against each other. Roman and Bray against the League of Nations, Alberto Del Rio, and Sheamus at the time. And the ending of the match is the best part of that match because Bray hits his sister Abigail finisher on Alberto. And in the midst of pinning Alberto, he points to Sheamus. He calls it out before it even happens. He points to Sheamus, not even looking behind him, not even to see that Roman was already headed that direction. He basically pointed out that Roman was going to spear Sheamus as Bray was getting the pin. Here comes Roman, boom, with a spear on Sheamus, but Bray called it out without even looking over his shoulder. And it was just, me explaining it does no justice. You have to look that up yourself. Go do yourself a favor and look that up on YouTube right now if you haven't seen that. It is definitely one of the coolest spots in modern day WWE history, for certain. That year leading into that WrestleMania, which would have been WrestleMania in Dallas, WrestleMania 32, at the AT&T Stadium, Bray was unfortunately suffering from, I believe it was an ankle injury at the time, so he was on the mend. He couldn't compete in a match, but he had one of the highlights. He was involved in one of the highlights of that entire WrestleMania when The Rock, who was the host of that year's WrestleMania, The Rock came out and actually had a promo battle with Bray Wyatt, one of the greatest talkers of the Attitude Era versus one of the greatest talkers of the modern era today. The Rock and Bray Wyatt going one-on-one on the microphone. It was magic. John Cena eventually came out, and it was Cena and Rock against the Wyatts. It was magic. What can I say? It was magic. Bray had a lot of beautiful moments, a lot of great moments in his short career in the company. He introduced a lot of stars today that we still have. Eric Rowan, he's no longer with the company. Braun Strowman is still with the company. And like I stated earlier, we unfortunately lost Luke Harper, a.k.a. Brody Lee. And those brothers are now reunited. But in their time, they had success. Bray was a former Raw Tag Team Champion with Woken Matt Hardy. which was a fun little feud that they had prior to them winning the tag team titles together. Matt Hardy got to bring his broken character to the WWE Universe. Just tweaked it a little bit with the name Woken instead of Broken. And they had the Ultimate Deletion at the Hardy Compound, which was a cinematic main event match for Raw. First time I think they'd ever done that. And it was another home run for Bray. That match was fucking awesome. It was entertaining to the utmost degree. Matt and Bray did have a chemistry, and it led to them becoming Raw Tag Team Champions. Another random tag team there, but they were the Deleters of Worlds, and I enjoyed their work very much. And Bray would win the SmackDown Tag Team titles with Randy Orton. And then it finally happened on February 12th, 2017, in the Elimination Chamber match. Bray Wyatt outlasted John Cena, Baron Corbin, Jon Moxley, The Miz, and AJ Styles to win his first world championship in his entire career, becoming the WWE champion for the very first time. And you can see the adulation in the crowd when he pinned AJ Styles to win that title. You could see the genuine happiness. You could tell that Bray broke character that night because he was just overwhelmed with joy at finally achieving something that his grandfather, his uncles, and his father had never achieved. Becoming world champion in WWE. The only member of his wrestling family to do so. Did it end prematurely? It did. Not all good, not good thing, and not every great thing could last forever. After his loss to Randy Orton, and this tag team with Matt Hardy as the Deleter of Worlds, Bray took a break from WWE. And in April of 2019, we started getting these ominous vignettes. And it was a puppet of a buzzard puppet, a witch doll, a pig, and a little rabbit. These puppets. It was like a children's. It was almost like a Pee-wee's Playhouse type of vibe. You know what I mean? And it was called the Firefly Funhouse. And that is when Bray came back as this new character. He was a little leaner in his physique. He had different hair, like it was more like blonde dreadlocks. He had a shorter beard, and these segments featured these puppets. One of them was called Mercy the Buzzard, Abby the Witch, kind of a play off of Sister Abigail, Ramblin' Rabbit, and Huskus the Pig Boy, which was a reference to his previous gimmick as Husky Harris, as well as a puppet for Mr. McMahon, and it had little devil horns on Mr. McMahon's forehead, which I always thought was really funny. And he introduced his new persona. Bray was shown to have multiple personalities. He was this fun-loving, sweet man hosting this odd children's-like television program called the Firefly Funhouse. But then he would put on this, and I swear this is probably one of the best horror masks I've ever seen, even outside of horror movies. This was legit. It was actually made by famous horror movie actor and production designer Tom Savini. The Fiend mask. If you haven't seen The Fiend or The Fiend mask itself, do yourself a favor and Google it and see it. It definitely is the stuff of nightmares. It was just awesome. It was amazing. Loved every bit of it. The fans were immediately tuned in and sucked into this other avenue of his creative genius. That's something about Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt was, no matter what he was doing, whether he was, on his back counting the lights or looking up at the lights while the 3 count was being counted, or if he was making the pin himself, whatever he was doing, the fans were always, we as fans were always so enamored with him, always in his corner, no matter what. And when The Fiend debuted for the first time, The Fiend Bray Wyatt, no longer was he this cult leader with a family living in the bayou. He was something different now. He was a monster. He was an attraction. He was special. Not to say he wasn't already special, but this was just something more, something different. And The Fiend was so very popular when he had first debuted at SummerSlam that year, defeating Finn Balor. He had this crazy lantern, which shaped around the lantern was a prosthetic head of Bray Wyatt, of what he used to look like during his Wyatt family days. Like the where the light was shining through was his mouth. That image alone of him carrying this head to the ring as a lantern while in his Fiend gimmick was, it was on another level, man. It definitely was. It was on another level, so much to the fact that he became the WWE Universal Champion, not once, but twice in his career as The Fiend. And he had a lot of famous quotes as The Fiend, famous catchphrases, yowie, wowie, and let me in were the main ones. The fans ate it up. His first WrestleMania as The Fiend unfortunately happened during the pandemic, and they had to have a cinematic match, which was the Firefly Funhouse match with, once again, John Cena. And John Cena has gone on record and has said that his Firefly Funhouse match is one of his most favorite things he's ever done in his career as a professional wrestler. He really, really enjoyed his time working with Bray, and especially that Firefly Funhouse. He said that's his most favorite match that they ever had. And, you really can't call it a match because, like I said, it was in a cinematic style, but it was entertaining. It was bonkers. It was out the box. It was exactly what it needed to be. If you haven't seen that, do yourself a favor and check that one out too, man. Bray's got a lot of great moments. All you got to do is just look them up, and you'll see and appreciate everything that I'm saying, and you'll understand what a huge loss this is for professional wrestling fans in losing such a bright, shining talent at such a very, very young age. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, Bray had some hit or miss feuds at that time. He ended up starting another feud with Randy Orton. which led to a match at WrestleMania the following year in 2021, when it was the first time they had fans in attendance once again, in a limited capacity, mind you. And that would be Bray's final WrestleMania match in a loss to Randy Orton. It was the opening match of Saturday's WrestleMania. And after that, shockingly, very shockingly, Bray Wyatt was let go. Windham Rotunda was let go from the WWE. And we didn't hear much from Bray. Bray was pretty radio silent online and on Twitter and on Instagram. He was radio silent on all social media platforms during this time away from the company. And I was shocked. Out of all the huge names that had been let go over the years, that was definitely one of the most shocking, was Bray being let go. I was not expecting that. A lot of fans were hoping that Bray would have jumped ship and gone to All Elite Wrestling during this time, but that never came to fruition. And I feel like that's the best thing that could have happened, honestly. But then there was a sign of something more to come. In September of last year, WWE started running these weird moments, like these weird things that you would have to, if you blinked, you'd miss it. These random QR codes would appear on screen, and then during the commercial breaks of Raw and SmackDown, this was not for the TV viewing audience. This was only for the live crowd. They would play an a cappella version of the song "White Rabbit" by Jefferson Airplane, and that song playing and the QR codes, it all kind of went together. If you were lucky enough to catch a QR code and actually catch it on your phone, it would lead you to either like a picture or a little video to play, and it was a white rabbit. It all had something to do with this white rabbit, and these little clues popping in and out. And after the main event of Extreme Rules on October 8th, after Seth Rollins and Matt Riddle had their Extreme Rules type, cage match or octagon-like match that they had, at the end of the event, before the show went off the air, we got White Rabbit playing in the arena, and real-life live-action versions of the Firefly Funhouse puppets, Mercy the Buzzard, Abby the Witch, Huskus the Pig Boy, and Ramblin' Rabbit, and the Fiend itself appeared in random spots in the crowd. And then finally, a door was sitting in the entranceway. The door would slam open, and coming out to a new, pretty awesome theme song in Shatter. That's the name of the theme song. If you haven't heard it, look it up on Spotify or iTunes and check it out. It's fucking awesome. And here comes Bray Wyatt back in the WWE. At the end of Extreme Rules, Bray Wyatt has returned to the company to thunderous ovation. Huge pop. This crowd was so fucking excited. I, watching at home, was so fucking excited to see Bray Wyatt back in the WWE once again, where he should have always been. He never should have left. He never should have been let go. And Triple H rectified that mistake by rehiring him, because he knew the kind of talent that he was. And he was accompanied soon after by this other masked figure in a top hat and a coat with a beard and a mustache, known as Uncle Howdy. For those who don't know, Uncle Howdy is actually Bo Dallas, his brother, under the mask. Bo Dallas was also let go at the same time that Bray was let go. They were both rehired back together by Triple H. And so now you got your brother working with you as Uncle Howdy. Bray Wyatt's back on television cutting these awesome promos, getting the crowd really amped up and excited to see him back in the ring once again. Excuse me. And his very first feud would be with one of the biggest stars in the company right now, L.A. Knight. And this led to their match at the Royal Rumble, which I remember I was kind of teasing it because of just how ridiculous it was, because it was a sponsored match by Mountain Dew. It was the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match that happened at the Royal Rumble. And this was, it was a purple hue, like a black light, that was put over the ring and the audience, and they were wearing like neon. LA Knight was wearing like neon type gear, and Bray Wyatt had his face painted in like neon type face paint. He even had like neon eye contacts that glowed like a bright reddish orange hue in this purple light. The match, it was what it was. I mean, I can't pretend that it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great either. But I mean, it did what it had to do. It brought Bray Wyatt back onto the WWE television screens in an active wrestling role. And it's crazy, but this would be Bray Wyatt's final feud and his final match in the company, because he was due to face Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania when all of a sudden that match was canceled and Bray was nowhere to be found. His last appearance would be on a SmackDown where Uncle Howdy and Bray interrupted Hit Row, Top Dollar, Ashanti the Adonis, and B-Fab, and Bray Wyatt attacked Ashanti and Top Dollar, and the crowd, very fittingly, in his final appearance on WWE television, the crowd chanting, "Thank you, Wyatt. Thank you, Wyatt. Thank you, Wyatt." In hindsight, that was very fitting. Fans were kept in the dark about his seemingly disappearance from WWE television after just returning in the fall. A lot of fans were very critical, not knowing what was going on. A lot of fans were speculating because that Vince McMahon was returning to the company, that had something to do with it, and that couldn't have been further from the truth. Little did we know, Bray was battling a horrible, horrible, life-threatening diagnosis of COVID-19. That is what has been released as of yesterday by Fightful Select. Sean Ross Sapp was given permission by the family of Bray Wyatt to discuss this on his X account. Bray Wyatt had a very terrible battle with COVID. That is what kept him out of wrestling for all this time, since February. It was to the point where he was hospitalized at different times. But lately, just within the last few weeks, I had been reading that Bray was on the mend, and they were already having plans in place, creative plans in place for his return. One of the things I heard that was being discussed was that Bray was going to get into a feud with Cody Rhodes, which would have been just so... I just know that would have been awesome. That would have been a money-making feud for both men. Bray and Cody would have had such a beautiful feud with each other. And then yesterday, with the positive outlook that the company had, and I'm sure that Bray had, unexpectedly he passed away at the age of 36. This is definitely one of those losses in wrestling that hurts very much so. A lot of the times, being a wrestling fan is tragic because a lot of your heroes die way too soon. And especially back in the day and in the early 2000s, a lot of it was due to drug use. Sad to say, but it's the truth. Or a random accident, in the case of Owen Hart. The toll that it takes on your body, the damage has already been done. You know, in the case of Eddie Guerrero, if this one hurts different because he's so young, and the randomness of it all, the unexpectedness of it all. WWE is doing the right thing by putting it on their www.shop.com that all proceeds from Bray Wyatt's merchandise sales will go straight to his partner JoJo and Bray's 4 children. I myself tried to purchase a t-shirt last night when I read that, and by the time I had gotten to the shop, all the shirts in my sizes have been sold out, and even the hat that they had for Bray Wyatt was sold out. I was like, if I can't get a shirt, I'll just buy a hat, and all gone already, which is fantastic. I look at it as a good thing, because if we can't personally send condolences and prayers of love and healing to the family of Bray Wyatt, us purchasing a t-shirt to help them monetarily is, in our way as wrestling fans to say, like, we're here for you and we want to help. So I'm hoping that they re-up his merchandise so I can do my part as well and pay my respect to Bray Wyatt. And that's why I had to be on here today, a day that I normally don't do my show, because I could not wait till next Tuesday to discuss Bray Wyatt. I had to come on here and pay my respect, give my respect, and honor his life and his career. As short as both were, he left an impact that will never ever be forgotten in the world of professional wrestling. To Windham Rotunda, to Bray Wyatt, rest in peace.